What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Tonight in Haddonfield. It's a Tuesday night, not a Monday night. We do these as the schedule allows us to do so, and we wanted to take 45 or 50 minutes out of our Tuesday night to dive into a Halloween Lost sequel, The Missing Years. Both Dean and I have taken the time to brush up on it, which, if you want it in its full scale and context, as always, we suggest you go out and purchase a copy of Taking Shape 2, done by Dustin McNeil and Travis Mullins, or check out the audiobook available on Audible. But we're also going to talk about the changes that are ahead for Crystal Lake and the wildly successful first weekend of Alien Romulus, which is, I got to be honest, a really positive thing because I was quite worried about it. Joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, Mr. Mean Dean Renner. What's going on, buddy?
What's up, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Had a fulfilling day for me today, so it's a little busy out on the road, running around, and finally here to sit and relax and get into this Lost sequel, which I have to say I quite enjoyed. So I'm sure we will get into that in the discussion. How about you, Sean? What did you think?
It's so hard while discussing these Lost sequels because they're so wonderfully put together in terms of what we get to learn about with them from Dustin McNeil and Travis Mullins.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, we never get to see the finished product, right?
Yeah.
We don't know who would have been cast. We don't know, in this case, how well the writing would have been in the script.
Yeah.
And how it plays out on screen. You don't get to see production quality, cinematography, sound design, score. We don't get any of that, right? So
Right.
part of it is, looking at nuggets or puzzle pieces and trying to piece together the full puzzle without having
Yeah.
the full puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, when talking about Halloween: The Missing Years by Jake Wade Paul, you kind of have to pit it against the Rob Zombie movies in a way.
Yep.
Because that's essentially what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll touch a little bit on the Halloween games as well as we go here with the show. If you guys want to talk about it, um, before we dive into Halloween, though, I do want to take a moment and just say thank you to everybody who's been coming out to the channel. And I know the content slowed down a little bit the last couple of weeks. I haven't been feeling great. But Dean's been putting out Show Share and Slash. Just recorded a brand new one last night that will go out Saturday. And honestly, I was quite impressed with it.
Hmm.
Sneak peek of it was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and was it Vinegar Syndrome or someone
Yeah.
else? Vinegar
Yep.
Syndrome?
Yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
them. They do great additions, and you guys will all get to see that this coming weekend.
If you can, try to turn yourself up a little bit, Dean. You sound a little low on my end. I don't know if anybody else thinks Dean sounds a little lower than me or not. Let us know, please, in the chat. Um, could just be me. Very well could be me. Not at the
I,
desk tonight.
yeah,
Um,
I bumped it a little bit. Is that a little better?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, so before we dive into Halloween: The Missing Years, which I really do think is a must hear for you if you're a Halloween fan, and frankly a must read if you can dive into the Lost Sequel book itself. Let's take a moment and talk about some positive horror news, man. Alien Romulus um, debuted positive on a couple of fronts. Have you seen it yet? I have not. I have not had the opportunity to.
Yeah, same. Not yet. I've heard a lot of good feedback, and box office looks really good. So far, it's off to a strong start. Um, it could give it a good 6 to 8 week theater run, maybe, and then we'll get it on streaming. And it might even end up on Hulu because the rest of the Alien franchise is currently on there, and they're Disney owned. So it may go there, but we'll see on that.
Yeah, more than likely Star for us in Canada, which is on the
Okay.
Disney Plus app.
Hmm.
Yeah, so $113 million
Wow.
worldwide off of this is an estimate, an 80 to $90 million production budget. Um, it debuted higher than people thought, and the positive thing it has going for it, man, is 59.8% of that 113 million, that equals 68 million plus, is international.
Wow.
So it's got some legs overseas
Yeah.
as well. This thing probably needed to make somewhere in the neighborhood of 175 to 180 million dollars to break even.
Hmm.
It is going to do that. It is going to make them some money, and that is a incredibly positive sign for a franchise that, frankly, needed positive signs. And
Yeah.
when you're owned by Disney, hey, just ask Star Wars fans of The Acolyte how they're feeling in the last 24 hours.
Hmm.
Their show got canceled.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, and if you do not deliver and you're a Disney property, you will not go on to make more. That's just the
Right.
way that they are now. They will cut you loose and come back to you at a later date at probably a much lower budget and a
Oh yeah.
different avenue of doing things. But like, just a super positive beginning. Your thoughts, man?
Yeah, it sounds great. I'm glad to see it's doing so well. I wasn't quite expecting the international response that it got, but good for them. And this probably lines them up for future projects, sequels, or I think this one fits in the timeline between like Aliens and maybe a handful of others. I forget exactly where it falls, but yeah, this is it's a good green light, I would say, for the Alien franchise.
Yeah, not to mention, it ended up coming in at 81% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes
That's
and
impressive.
86% audience score.
Wow.
So it has checked all three boxes.
Yeah.
The majority of the audience is happy with the movie, the critics are happy with the movie, and it did very, very well, uh, opening weekend. And on top of it, I'd say that the fourth box is, it's I'm not saying it's easy to score well domestically, um, but in North America, that's usually where your power in the box office is coming from.
Oh yeah.
And in this case, they did well domestically. They took Deadpool and Wolverine out of the number one seat.
Wow.
But then like the overseas was just phenomenal. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am for fans of the Alien franchises. We live in a day and age where your movie stumbles once and your franchise is in the middle of an abyss.
Yeah. It's it's all good signs. Like I mentioned, could open up some doors for future. We'll kind of see where that falls. But yeah, with Disney being so hard and hard to please, and they could cancel you very quickly. It's good to see that it's getting a good audience score, really good critic score. You don't get a lot of good critic scores when it comes to something in that like horror thriller realm. So that's good. You know, fingers crossed that it stays strong for the next few weeks. And then, it should do pretty well in streaming too for people that don't run out to the theater and see it. I still want to catch it in IMAX if possible. So I have a pretty busy schedule coming up, which may become even busier. I had something today that I'm waiting on an answer on. So I will find out what that is. And that could actually be beneficial for us here. Possibly. So more news on that later. But yeah, I'm still stoked to try to get out there to see Alien Romulus in IMAX.
American Turkey Burger, long time no see, man.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you around these parts in a while. Welcome back. We're doing things a little bit differently. And by the way, I've started to see some old faces start to come
Hmm.
around the channel again, but I've also seen a lot of new faces that have never been here before. So thank you to everybody who's been supporting the content, liking, commenting, subscribing, turning notifications to all that stuff helps. If you have the ability to do so, obviously super chats help as well. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Haven. Um, American Turkey Burger says the power is off where I'm at. Perfect timing for some Michael Myers talk. Yes, right after our next topic, which is Crystal Lake, we are going to spend basically the rest of the show discussing Halloween: The Missing Years, as well as hey Jay, what's going on, brother? Um, and we're going to touch a little bit on the video game stuff because I do see a lot of misinformation out there about what's going on with that. So I wouldn't mind clarifying
Yeah.
a couple of things. Great Watcher says it got cold in CT, Connecticut. Is that
Yeah.
where that is?
Hmm.
I'm watching Friday the 13th OG
Nice.
right now. Underrated Friday film, in my opinion. I know it's not obviously Jason heavy by any
Right.
means, but I quite like the original, man.
Yeah, I came around to it. I wasn't a huge fan of it before. Used to skip it a lot of the times, but in recent, I would say probably since the Scream Factory box set came out a couple years ago, back 2020, was when I really started getting back to that original. Then the 4K came out. That came with some problems, I guess some people would say, but it all depended on like your display, your setup, and all that stuff. A lot of people thought it was way too dark, but they shot that movie intentionally like that. So when I picked up the 4K, watched it, I thought it looked great. Not too dark, and I find myself coming back to it a lot more now.
Dustin says it takes place between Alien and Aliens,
I thought so.
and they have a new show called Alien Earth. And then he guesses that Romulus will likely get a sequel. Yeah, I mean, if it does well, it's
Hmm.
Disney owned. That's almost a given.
Yeah.
I don't think that means they're going to unleash the budget, though. I think they'll be careful. I think they were pretty high on this one, frankly. I
Hmm.
was surprised to see them in that 80 to 90 million dollar territory just on the production budget. And then the TV show, if I'm not mistaken, has Timothy Oliphant in it,
Hmm.
who I'm a big fan of. Oh, my TV just decided to unmute itself. Um, I'm a big Oliphant fan, and like just having him in that show will definitely get eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
So I hope that's good. Looking forward to that. Speaking of Timothy Oliphant, Terminator Zero comes out. I believe it's next week
Oh wow.
on
Okay.
Netflix. So the animated thing, and then I think is the Penguin September or October. I know we're going to do the Penguin
Cool.
here on this channel.
I want to say October, but it could be September. I know that's soon. I know it's very soon because I saw something. It was either something with Colin Farrell or something about the show itself. But I know it's close. So we're kind of knocking on the door with the Penguin series. So that could be any time between September October. Yeah,
Dustin said saw it in Dolby, and man, the
I
sound
love
design was
Dolby.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Um, the the two biggest things. By the way, Jason from Backtrack Cinemas in the house. Can't wait to see the new Alien movie. Huge Alien and Predator fan. Um, by the way, check out Backtrack Cinema, channel sponsor here. Without Jason's help, without help from guys like him and Chris and Ryan and Matt and Jesse, it'd be virtually impossible to do the amount of content that we're doing across the channels that we have. And if you haven't been here in a while, we renamed Fandom Empire Haddonfield and Beyond. We're primarily horror now. I should say primarily Halloween and then horror. Although I've been toying around with the idea of doing some supernatural content on here because supernatural still falls in the horror genre. And over the last month, we've just rewatched season one of Supernatural, and I took about a day to rank my season one episodes, and like it's my favorite
nice.
show ever, and
Yeah.
it's like I've never ranked the episodes, and it was a challenge. Like it took several hours to go through that list and come
Hmm.
up with what I would rank them as. And then if you're missing any of our other content, you can check out our Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon content over on the Legacy of Westeros, the Legacy of Star Wars. We have a live stream right after this one available on that channel, and then Fandom Haven, where you can catch our wrestling talk and comic book talk. And then our channel sponsors, as we mentioned, Jesse, Jason, Chris, Ryan, and Matt. Check them out at their respective channels. Jesse Storytime Spectacular, Jason at Backtrack Cinema, Chris C underscore 78 if you want a Myers mask done. Colleague Nation, which just hit monetization. It's a NASCAR channel that Ryan and I run, and Matt Whitfield, who is a big part of what we do here, and I believe he's going to be a big part of some of our Patreon content coming up. So be
Oh, uh-oh. We lost Sean. All right, let's give him a minute to get back. In the meantime, anyone in the chat, feel free. Questions, comments, I will do my best to handle that until we get Sean back. Oh,
here's the problem when you do
there
this
it
on
is.
your phone. The second somebody calls you, doesn't matter
Oh,
if you have it on ignore,
yeah.
boots you from the stream.
No shit.
Yes. Jason says I'd appreciate anyone coming out to the channel for sure. We want to do something with Jason soon too. I would love to
Hmm.
sit down and do a watch along with him and have him on. He's a great guy to talk horror with, and
Yeah.
someone that's absolutely worth supporting. Byron says, I prefer this pitch Halloween the Missing Years over H2O. Well, that's interesting. That's when I think Halloween the Missing Years, I think Halloween the Missing Years versus the zombie movies more than I do H2O. Byron also asks, what was our favorite aspect of the script for the Missing Years? They don't really get into a full script. You know, they're very light on what they provide there. It's more of just a concept of the movie. But we are going to discuss that after Crystal Lake. Richard is here. He mentions he just saw the new Alien flick. It was a good film, dude. As I was about to say before I got interrupted there, a buddy of mine who saw it a couple of days before it was released to the public had said, one, if you can see it in a theater, go see it in a theater,
Yeah.
see it in Dolby. It's apparently very, very good. But two, that the cinematography and the suspense in the film is
Hmm.
actually quite good. He was surprised at the quality of the film. He thought that it was definitely going to be watered down, being from Disney.
Yeah. Um, Glad to hear that it wasn't. And I'm gonna kind of tip my hat to Fede Alvarez for that because I feel like he's like a go-to for horror. And this was, I think, the point of Alien or Romulus was getting it back to more of the original Alien, which is heavy on suspense, heavy on horror aspect. So to hear that this is along the lines of that, thumbs up from me.
Jason asks, do we know the direction of the Crystal Lake series? Well, we know the significant changes that have happened behind the scenes for the Crystal Lake series now. Um, but the truth is, in terms of story, we don't, because what they revealed, um, and not them meaning those that were in charge, but details on what the series was going to be through Brian Fuller came out when he left. And I can oh well, this is why I like a difference in opinion. I want to stop where I am there. Sinister says, "Sorry, but Romulus isn't good. Just rips off
Hmm.
what's already been done better from Alien and Aliens." That's the popular thing to do, though, nowadays, right? To go back and
Yeah,
do a soft reboot almost of series. Star Wars: The Force Awakens did it. Halloween 2018 did it. Even dating back to Friday the 13th, 2009.
yeah.
All similar things to do. I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy it though. Um, Jay says, so I was told they want to go with someone in the late 30s for Loomis. Latest early
Hmm.
40s, like early. Yeah, the last thing that we heard, I know we're a little off track here in terms of the TV series. The last thing I was specifically told by somebody that would know what was going on is they had a concept of the story that they were doing that included Loomis, and one where he was very loosely involved. I think there's definitely a fear there still after all these years of not casting the right person
Hmm.
as Dr. Loomis. I know Dean and I talked about this off air a little bit. Um, and I can tell you right now that the source that we use at the channel, the main guy, he is not at all sure which direction that they're leading with that. And I was pretty adamant with you lean into Loomis. You know, they already
Yeah,
hinted at him. They already hinted at characters that we know who haven't gotten the screen time in more recent entries of Halloween. For me, Loomis is if you're not having Laurie in it, which please God no.
yeah,
Um, Loomis is an obvious answer. That being said, I don't envy the people that have to go out and cast that role.
yeah. It's a tough job, big shoes to fill, and a lot of fans to please.
Sorry, one moment here, man. Trying to multitask. You want to read Sinister's comment there?
Yeah, I was just reading that to myself. He wanted to like it, it just didn't work for him. He'll stick to the first two films. Yeah, I mean that's unfortunate. But like Sean mentioned, that seems to be the thing nowadays is to tap into what was and try to capitalize with a new audience to kind of please modern day fans, old fans, and kind of tick both of those boxes. It's a hard thing to do. It really is, especially with how critical people are majorly nowadays. Like I say a lot, like something comes out and it's almost split down the middle 50-50, and you have people who loved it, people that hate it, and then you have a handful of people that kind of fall in the middle, um, which is usually where I'm at. But yeah, I mean that's a little unfortunate. But yeah, Sinister. Sticking to the first two films, if that works for you, go for it.
Richard says they'll find it hard to get someone to play Loomis. Donald Pleasance did such a great job on him in the originals. Well, I think your key there is you can have someone come in and have part of like the Donald Pleasance essence, if you will,
Hmm.
but you do need someone to come in and make the role their own. It cannot be a carbon copy of what they had in Halloween '78 or even any of 1, 2, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Um, there can be some similarities, but it's got to be its own thing, and that might piss people off. But guess what? Doing the same thing over again is not going to work. But yeah, so Um, we'll see what happens on that front. Crystal Lake. Let's dive into this before we go any further with Halloween stuff here. We only got about 25 minutes to go in the show. So this is from Deadline. Crystal Lake, Peacock's upcoming Friday the 13th prequel series from Studio A24 has found its new showrunner, Brad Caleb Kane. Now, if you're wondering where you've heard that name from, he is the showrunner behind It, Welcome to Derry. And because we haven't seen that series yet, nobody really knows what to expect. I
Yeah.
don't know Brad's other work, so I can't really comment on it. Um, in addition to show running, Kane will serve as the series creator, writer, and executive producer. He assumes the reins from Brian Fuller. And basically, there is no mention at all on what the content will be, but he Brad did have a couple of things to say. Um, he said, "From the moment I watched Jason Voorhees squeeze a guy's eyeball out of his socket in glorious 3D at the tender age of 8 years old, I knew my creative path was someday destined to converge with the masked man behind the hockey mask. Nothing defined my childhood more than growing up in the golden age of slasher flicks, and nothing defined the genre more than Friday the 13th. I couldn't be more excited for the opportunity to contribute a chapter to this iconic franchise, particularly with such a fearless partners as Peacock and A24. Um, I'm going to be honest. This is me reading in between the lines. That reads a lot like they're going to do what Alien Romulus just did instead of doing what Brian Fuller was doing. Brian Fuller was basically reinventing the series, much like he did Hannibal, and it was going to be totally different. Um, I'm not saying this is going to be goofy like the early Friday the 13th movies are, or most of the Friday the 13th
Yeah.
movies, rather, having rewatched them all recently. Um, but I do think, regardless of who's show running, it's going to be more serious in tone.
Mhm.
Uh, look, until we see It, Welcome to Derry, I can't really comment on what my expectations are for this. And that being said, I think, you know, anyone replacing Brian Fuller is, um, they have a hell of a task in front of them. And Brad here isn't just being the showrunner; he's wearing a bunch of hats here,
Right.
and so that's a lot going on. And obviously, It Welcome to Derry is getting ready to come out fairly soon.
Hmm.
So his work on that's basically done. But you know, who knows? That could come out. It could tank, and all of a sudden, Peacock and A24 could get cold feet again.
Yeah.
The one thing we can definitively tell you though is it is not the same Crystal Lake series that Brian Fuller was doing. This is something else with the same title. Um, we'll see what comes from it. I'll say this for Brad is his project's coming out as I believe an HBO original,
Hmm.
and if HBO is approving of your work, you've probably done something right.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a prequel series, so we are supposed to get something that kind of dives into before what we've seen with Pennywise and the town of Derry so far. So, um, if they kind of take that direction and apply it to Crystal Lake and sort of aim to kind of pick up maybe from what Brian Fuller was going to do, we might still be in good hands at the moment. Like Sean said, we don't know how well or not that Welcome to Derry is going to do. So that'll kind of be our footprint if Crystal Lake's not out, anytime soon. Which going through all these problems, I wouldn't expect it to be. So we'll see how that unfolds and what happens. But yeah, as always, I'm keeping higher hopes that whatever comes from it, we get a good product. Welcome to Derry will kind of be the the preview for what we might be able to expect, and we'll see where that goes. Um, it's tough shoes to fill, tough shoes to follow. I think Brian Fuller's idea probably would have went over fairly well, uh, breaking from formula, switching over from the fun and the campy over to a more serious tone. And I would have liked to see that. I'm sure Sean would have liked that as well. Um, we're not getting that, but maybe, just he'll maybe he'll pull from that and try to sort of stick to something close, or maybe a happy medium of sort of that prequel series, and then get into your camp and your fun that we know from Friday the 13th. So um let's not write it off just yet. We'll wait until some details come out, and we'll comment further once we hear a little more.
No, Mike Flanagan wasn't going to work. He is mega busy right now with various projects that he's doing. Um, I'm forgetting the big thing that he just signed up for. It completely slipped my mind. But he
Sinister just wrote that he's in on The Exorcist, so that's one.
So well, no, actually, Flanagan's doing The Exorcist.
Oh, right, not
So
Fuller.
I'd be curious, like if Fuller's involved with that too. If you're telling me we're gonna get and I haven't read anything about Fuller being in on The Exorcist, but if it's a Fuller Flanagan thing, my God, all of a sudden I'm probably seeing that thing opening weekend. I'm a huge Flanagan guy, so looking at Brad Caleb Kane's work, the simple truth is, you are not bringing in someone that has the background of he meant Flanagan, okay? You're not bringing in someone that has the background of Flanagan. He doesn't have the background of Fuller either. Like, I'm looking at his producing credits. Obviously, he just did Welcome to Derry as a co-showrunner. But other than that, man, a TV series called Crash, he did 13 episodes of. He was the co-producer on Fringe, which was a popular TV show back in the day. Black Sails, which I haven't watched, but I heard that's pretty good. He was a producer on that. And then, honestly, not a whole lot else with any level of success. So, my guess is they heard good things about Welcome to Derry. Again, like, that thing has become an HBO production. So, if you're not doing your shit with HBO, you want to talk about getting kicked to the curb. Well, the one place that'll kick you to the curb quicker than Disney is HBO. So, I'm gonna be cautiously optimistic is the way I would word it.
I'd say that's probably the best approach. That way you're not overly hyping yourself for it and then setting yourself up for possible disappointment. So,
all right, let's spend the rest of the show talking about Halloween, the missing years here, man. This is what I have on it. Jake Wade Wall, who's a writer, was hired. So this would be between Halloween Resurrection and Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween. So you're talking the years 2002 to 2007, that 5-year gap there. Jake Wade Wall was hired 3 different times to do Halloween 9, essentially. And it didn't work out for various reasons each time, but they kept going back to him. In this case, Halloween the Missing Years is kind of like a prequel sequel. We're going to focus on Dean's notes during this. I'm going to go over a few of mine first. The movie was set to open up with a flashback to 1963. Where have we heard that before? That's a popular go-to for a lot of writers that come into Halloween. It was going to focus post Judith's death. We were going to spend some time with Michael as he got incarcerated. Follows Loomis in the asylum a little bit in the early years. Follows Michael a little bit. So it's sounding a lot like what we see with Rob Zombie's movie early on,
Hmm.
maybe less trashy, and it also, um, for me, Jake goes on to say in the interview that he does that he was under the impression that Rob Zombie might have been working off of his script, and then it turned out that Rob Zombie went and did his own.
Yeah,
But it certainly seems like Rob Zombie may have been inspired by certain elements of
just a
Jake's
little bit.
script, despite whether he's willing to admit that or not.
Yeah.
Um, so we spend time in 1963 specifically,
Hmm.
um, and then we fast forward to the night of um, after Halloween 2, which is the same night
Hmm.
as Halloween 1. Spend a little time there, and then we fast forward an entire year where the majority of the story takes place back in Smith's Grove,
Hmm.
not just the sanitarium, but the town itself, which is not an
Right.
area we've spent a ton of time in.
Nope.
And the crux of the film is Michael eventually travels back to the sanitarium, which is abandoned
Hmm.
due to the events that happened the prior year. And our group of characters that we follow in that movie are kind of hanging out there and partying there, and Michael unleashes hell on them, and
Yeah.
that's really all they reveal
Hmm.
with this. So it's a very brief concept, which is why we're not spending like an hour on it. But I
Yeah.
got to tell you, man, as a guy who's not a big champion for Rob Zombie films, I sit here and go, I think I would have rather seen this film.
Hmm.
What do you got in your notes, bud?
Yeah. I have a lot of what you covered. I just kind of went into like a little more detail. Typically, what I do is as I'm listening along to these chapters of the audiobook, I'll kind of jot down what the narrator's saying and kind of put it all in notes for us to discuss here. So, Sean covered a bulk of it. Basically, what the story was going to be, where it takes place, kind of timeline. Um, I guess I'll jump to this was sort of intended to be a Halloween 3 of sorts. So, like Sean had said, fast forwarding to a year later from the end of Halloween 2, that is something that I've wanted to see for a long time. So, to me, that idea, that's green light, thumbs up already for me. It would have definitely, uh, where am I at here? It would have it would have been good, I think. As we stress execution and casting and all of that, how would it have played out on screen and what would we have saw? But I love that idea of picking up from Halloween 2. They don't really. There's no explanation of how. Yeah, after he gets extra crispy, yeah, Michael somehow survives that explosion. It's not really explained. We don't hear anything. I think the only hint was just it's Michael being Michael. We don't know how he survived. And then there was one small detail. It was pretty much we don't even know if Michael would have gotten his trademark mask back because obviously it burned up in the fire at the end of H2. So that was a little bit of a kind of a concern, but I think the notion that they approached it with was it was a year later. This town is getting ready for its Halloween celebrations, and more than likely because of what happened the year prior, there would have been kids out trick or treating, probably in Kirk masks or Myers masks, as we know them. So it's more than likely that he would have gotten some type of mask close to the original back. Um, they also focus when they were talking about Smith's Grove. They wanted to introduce new characters within Smith's Grove. So one of them being Michael's nurse from when he was young. Basically, she, handled him with care. She was nice to him, and they wanted to kind of approach that and seeing would how would he react if he had come across her again, later when he was grown and out on this, killing spree. How would he have encountered her again? What would have happened? Would he have, you know, shown mercy, or would he have, been Michael? So, some different avenues, couple different things to explore. Very cool idea, I think. I love the idea of picking up after H2, no explanation how he survived, and he's just taking up residence in Smith's Grove again, and that's kind of his second home. And the other approach that they wanted to do was Michael kind of being protective of like himself and his former homes. So they wanted to use Smith's Grove as his second home, and that's why he would have went after the teenagers and started picking them off because they're kind of invading his space. So so yeah, I mean, a good idea lined up, I think.
Um, I like the approach of like, hey, this is our take on what Halloween 3 with Michael Myers
Yeah.
would have been. I think, considering the time that they were aiming for this thing to come out in, um, it makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, once again, this is one of those projects that the Weinsteins, or however you want
Yeah.
to say their name, kind of killed,
Yep.
to a point like Maleka Cad was speaking very positively on it.
Hmm.
The other thing that kind of hampered it is Mustafa died
Right.
during the writing of it.
Hmm.
Um, but even after that fact, once it became clear that they were going to do a remake and that the Weinstein's were pushing for that, when Malek would be asked about it, he would say, no, like, yeah, it's going to be a much different take on it. But right now, our sole focus, or our first focus, is on getting Halloween 9 out first.
Yeah.
So even after the announcement of Rob Zombie's movie, uh, the Malak was very much still trying to get this movie made. Um, but that's where the Halloween rights issues just
Hmm.
have been a problem time and time and time again, and they killed so many different movies during this time, and the ones that did come out, they were hampered by it. The rights aren't nearly as in a precarious position nowadays as they were back
Yeah.
then. um, but it's unfortunate because like the proof is there that, oh, once again there was two different captains leading the ship in two different directions. And personally, I would have rather seen a attempt at an actual, in story or in universe Halloween 3 over a Rob Zombie movie.
Yeah. Um, I would be on board with that. I think I remember they had kind of two approaches. They were thinking of this, and then they were thinking of also remaking Halloween as the 10th film. So there was some sort of remake talk kind of in the works as well, but the focus was getting some type of ninth film out first, well before a remake. And it's like you just said, and I'm on board with. I would have much rather seen some type of Halloween 3 featuring Myers over, the eventual couple years later getting Rob Zombie's 2007 film. So, it kind of sucks, but it was a fun listen. I think a lot of good details that were included. They were talking about kind of showing us a little bit of Michael in the sanitarium between 6 and when he breaks out, and then we still get Michael in his prime. We still get prime Michael after the end of H2, kind of back out there, and a location change. So outside of Smiths Grove, we don't get a name of the town, I don't think, but it's just outside of like suburban Illinois. So it's close quarters to where Smiths Grove was. So he takes up residence there, and then I believe part of the movie takes place, I think, in Smiths Grove, and then I would imagine outside of Smiths Grove, possibly out on the town. So, it always leaves the question: what could have been?
Byron asks, I'm curious to know from the both of you on what would be I think he means better film if we did get Halloween 9. The Missing Years, which essentially would have been Halloween 3, Halloween Retribution, which is a movie we've covered here on the channel and still have another video to put out on that, or Halloween Asylum, the 2004 version. I don't think Dean has dove into Asylum yet, but it's
Not
something we
yet.
intend to get to.
Hmm.
So I'll view this as Missing Years versus Retribution.
Hmm.
I like the concept of Missing Years.
Yeah.
but I really like the idea of, putting John Tate and Brackett together
Yeah.
in a movie like that. So I personally got to give the edge to Retribution, but Missing Years definitely had potential.
Yeah. I'm going to go to the other side of it. I'm going to pick Missing Years over Retribution, simply because like I'm not a huge fan of H2O, and Retribution still would have been a good sequel to that and kind of surpassed Resurrection. Um, in tying into H2O. But just hearing what could have come from the missing years, and it was actually this is something that we kind of breezed over, but may have been able to get the idea out there. This was going to be a period piece, so there was going to be part of a period piece set in '63. I don't know if they were going to touch on anything in '78 besides him surviving um, the hospital explosion, but I think after that, it was just gonna be a year later, so you're talking set around 1979. Um, yeah, around 79. So you're getting a '70s period piece with the missing years, and that's something that a lot of the hardcore fans always kind of wanna go back to. We wanna stay in that time period, we wanna stay in that frame of the late '70s, early '80s. So I think this would have fit, right into that, and it would have been a really good revisit, I guess, to that '70s time period.
I don't think you've done Halloween 3D yet, have you?
Um, I think I've either listened to something. I think we listened to it, and then we were debating on kind of moving forward and doing like something like this for that. I think if I can remember right, I think I did go in and listen to the 3D chapter in Taking Shape. I think.
I know I re-listened to it recently, so wouldn't mind following up with that soon.
Hmm.
That one was the Todd Farmer, Patrick Lussier project
Yeah.
that again the Weinsteins really fucked up.
Yep.
um,
As usual.
story of that era of Halloween, the '90s through the 2000s. But yeah, that's gonna do it for our discussion on Halloween. The missing years tonight. If you haven't yet, please like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all to keep up to date with all of our content. Check out Dean's most recent episode of Show Share and Slash. It's available on the channel. Feel free to go do that as soon as we're done here. New episode will be out this weekend, and then we're gonna clip out the one that he did on last week's stream, and that'll go out as the following episode. Just in terms of having time to edit. Yes, there is two versions of Halloween 3D. That is
Hmm.
correct. Um, so yeah, be on the lookout for that. We're gonna do more Lost sequels. On the Halloween video game front, I know it was brought up earlier in the chat. Um, the side scroller is one of the games they were talking about. I know that's hard to believe, but it is, just so we're clear. And then the other one, I know there was some worry, well, it's going to be a different type of side scroller. That's not the
Mm,
case. The other one is being
no.
done in Unreal Engine 5, has John Carpenter involvement. The other one's definitely going to be um, a more pricier project than the side scroller one.
Yeah.
But other than that, I hesitate to say details on it because it probably is going to be an asymmetrical horror game.
Hmm.
Now, the question is, can they include some sort of story element in that for solo play? I don't know. Obviously, that's what a lot of people want. Um, whether we get it or not remains to be seen. Um, Dean, final thoughts, man?
Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into more Lost sequels. They're a lot of fun to listen to and kind of go back and see like what could have been, what projects were on the fence or close to production that unfortunately got shut down. There's a lot. There's a whole lot of them. So Taking Shape 2 is whether you go the physical copy or you get the audiobook. Um, a lot of great material to go in and check out. I mentioned this, I think, the last show shared slash, but I'll mention it here again. I have a lot of pre-orders coming in, so I have a lot of stuff to show off in the coming months. So be on the lookout for those. And yeah, Sean and I will be back as soon as we can with more live streams and more content for everybody.
Yeah, I have a solo video coming out. I've written I guess you could say, the script for it. I just need to record it on some very intriguing Tom Atkins. I don't
Ah,
want to
yeah.
call it news, but something that could have happened. Um, so that'll be out hopefully sometime in the next 7 to 10 days. Um, and then yeah, we got a bunch of stuff coming. We have a Halloween H2O stream coming up. There's some debate whether we can go long enough that night to be able to do H2O and Resurrection in the same night. We're gonna figure that out and get you guys a date soon. And look, it's Halloween season, so we're gonna be planning some special things for October. That's a little too early to reveal now. And then yeah, we'll keep our eyes and ears, searching and see if we get more rumblings about the Halloween TV series. I suspect that we're going to get something sooner than later. Um, and if we don't, it's probably not a great sign. But I think October is going to be a very fun month for
Oh yeah.
Halloween fans. Um, but anyways, again, like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications to all. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Haven. And we'll see you next time in Haddonfield and beyond.